I thought the HOA had finally stopped interfering with my ranch. Then I saw an oil drilling rig sitting on my land. Nobody had asked me for permission, and that was only the beginning of the problem. I walked toward the equipment and asked what was happening. The HOA representative told me they had signed an oil lease. She said the project was worth millions. I immediately asked one question. Whose land were they drilling on? She told me the HOA had negotiated an $82 million oil lease. She spoke as if the deal was already guaranteed. I listened carefully without arguing. Then I asked her to show me the document, proving they had the right to sign it. The paperwork described the property as part of the HOA-controlled development, but something about the description didn't look right. I had owned this ranch long before the neighborhood existed, so I decided to check my original records. That evening, I went through every box of property records I had. Most of them were decades old. I was looking for one document in particular. I just didn't know yet how important it would become. Buried underneath the old ranch maps was a document from 1953. The paper was yellowed and fragile, but the property description was still readable. I knew immediately that I had found something important. The deed described the ranch boundaries in precise terms. It wasn't an HOA document. It was an original land deed, and the boundaries described on that paper were very different from what the HOA claimed. I placed the old deed beside the modern map. Then I compared the boundary descriptions line by line. The difference was impossible to ignore. The ranch appeared to extend directly beneath the area where the HOA planned to drill. I wasn't going to rely on a guess. I marked the old boundary on the current map. Then I realized something even bigger. The proposed drilling location sat almost exactly inside my original ranch boundaries. The next morning, I walked back to the drilling site. I carried the old deed with me. I wanted to see exactly where the engineers believed the property boundary was. I showed the engineer the old deed. He studied it carefully before comparing it with his modern survey. He didn't laugh or dismiss it. Instead, he became extremely serious. The engineer checked the legal description against his survey coordinates. Then he checked them again. Finally, he looked directly at the HOA representative. Something about his expression told me the deal had just changed. The engineer explained that the drilling site might not belong to the HOA at all. The old deed's boundary description appeared to overlap the drilling area. Suddenly, the $82 million lease was no longer looking secure. The HOA executive couldn't believe what she was hearing. She said the lease had already been negotiated, but the engineer explained that a contract couldn't simply override an older property title. She suddenly realized the entire deal could be in danger. I held up the 1953 deed and pointed toward the drilling site. The paper had survived for more than 70 years. Now it might determine whether an $82 million deal was even valid. The engineer decided to perform a complete boundary verification. Survey equipment was placed along the fence line. Every measurement would be compared with the 1953 deed. This time, nobody was taking anything for granted. The survey took hours. The engineer measured from multiple reference points. Every new marker seemed to strengthen the same conclusion. The drilling area was dangerously close to the original ranch boundary. Finally, the engineer finished the comparison. He looked at the old deed one last time. Then he looked at the modern survey. The two pieces of evidence pointed in the same direction. The engineer confirmed that the old deed could not simply be ignored. The HOA's lease had a serious ownership problem. I looked at the executive and realized she finally understood what that meant. The $82 million oil deal was suddenly in serious trouble. The HOA thought they controlled the land, but the 1953 deed told another story. And the engineer had just confirmed what I suspected. My ranch was never theirs to lease.